today on behalf of UC Tax Freeze. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Kim Iglehart. I live at 736 Garden Drive. UC Tax Freeze has tried to keep its campaign sign posting activity compliant with the law. We checked with code compliance before posting any signs. We relocate signs that are improperly posted. Our signs have been up since September 12th, almost 5 full weeks, without any problem. This past Friday, on election eve, so to speak, code compliance decided to do a sweep. And rather than give me a courtesy call to tell me, as he later did, that his response to my email had been incorrect, Mr. Lacey Dunn proceeded to harass elderly voters in the free exercise of their First Amendment rights. These signs have been posted in compliance with the instructions I have received from Mr. Dunn, who has CC'd Mr. Staudt into his response. The underlying problem is that nobody really knows where the public right-of-way is. And I strongly suspect that it varies by neighborhood. Mr. Casada says where the driveway apron code is, and lacking an apron, 1 foot behind the sidewalk. But if you go to Andorra in Coronado Village, you will find a house with a rear entry garage side by side with houses with front driveways. The apron cut aligns with the rear edge of the sidewalk. Does this mean that for every other house, the back edge of the sidewalk is okay, but the house with the rear entry garage must use 1 foot behind the sidewalk? A stair-stepped right-of-way line. And why does the city clerk say it is 10 feet back from the curb? Worse than all this confusion was Mr. Casada's response when I asked where I could read for myself the right-of-way provisions in city code. He said, and I quote, "I am not going to do your research for you." This man uses rudeness to compensate for his lack of knowledge. His attitude towards me is unacceptable. This is not Chicago. When the city refuses to publicly disclose its legal codes and processes, the fundamental principle of the rule of law, it is my civic duty to ask questions. Now, because Mr. Casada does not know from whence his authority derives, I must do yet another open record request. Just yesterday, Mr. Dunn confiscated our sign on Kitty Hawk, claiming it was a state highway. Since when? Mr. Dunn deserves to be properly trained on actual law that he sees in writing, rather than his boss's idea of what the law might be. As a free American, I do not believe the law is whatever the government tells me it is. It is time to restore the rule of law to its rightful place here in the Universal City. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Did anyone else want to address council that didn't get a chance to sign up? Okay, so let's proceed then. I'm going to change the agenda this evening. We have a published agenda out there because of some circumstances. I'm going to switch. The first thing we're going to do is actually move into an executive session. And after that, there's a no tab after that, and then we'll move on to tab number D, which is the presentation on the PACE program. So I just want you to be aware that's what we're going to do. Because of the timing of our meeting this evening, I thought it more appropriate for us to go directly into executive session, get the matters needed to discuss there. Then we'll come back and be able to present the entire rest of the council meeting to you guys, rather than go through a partial and then broken in this session. So we will break into session right now. It is 6:45 p.m. Hopefully we'll be back very shortly. So please stick around. This is something we need to discuss, and so I hope that you stick around for the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll reconvene the meeting now at 7:03 p.m. and we'll sign in for the record. I did not indicate everything that was involved with that executive session, so let me read this. We went to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551-071, consultation with attorney to seek legal advice in connection with pending litigation, cause number 2021C18486, Robert Staudt et al. Versus City of Universal City. That's when we went into executive session. So coming out of that, next item is a no tab. We're reconvening from that closed session, and is there any action that would be necessary?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
I
Mayor.
move for a motion that the City of Universal City accept the engagement letter dated 10/18/2021 and authorize Denton, Navarro, Roca, Burnell, exec to be engaged as legal counsel for the city in case number 2021 CI18481 Staudt et al. Versus City of Universal City.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Maxwell, second by Councilmember Najarian. Further discussion? Okay, call for the vote, please, Chris.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Foley.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. We shall proceed. Then the next item, as I told you, we're going to move this up. We're going to move now to tab number D, which is to discuss and to consider resolution 926-2021. It's a resolution of intent to establish a Universal City Property Assessed Clean Energy PACE program. And Ms. Turner, and I know we have a special guest.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know most of the council members recognize Diane Rath, Executive Director of the Alamo Area Council of Governments. This is a program that they administrate on behalf of the state. Diane's going to give you all of the details on it, and I apologize, we do only have the one screen, and then Michael is going to be doing the slide transition, so you feel free to say next slide. She'll give you that. So this is actually a two-part. So we're going to have a presentation tonight, and then if council wishes to move forward, then you will adopt the resolution of intent in order to participate in the PACE program. November 16th, we will have a public hearing on this particular item, and then also at that meeting, we will have a resolution to adopt the PACE program so that we can try to help some of our Universal City commercial businesses achieve improvements and some necessary energy efficiency. With that, I'll turn it over to Diane.
Diane,
Thank you
welcome.
very much. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this program with you. And I'll share some information about the program and then how it works, and then show you some examples of different properties that have used it before. PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. And it really is a private financing tool. And I always emphasize that this is not a government program, it's not a grant funded program. It is a private arrangement between the property owner and their financial institution. Anything that saves money for either energy or water conservation. So the whole premise is to take older properties or older technology and be able to update it in a cost-affordable way. Next slide. By background, the state of Texas, the legislature adopted it in 2013. Took a couple of years to get going, and then a couple of smaller communities started. In fact, interestingly enough, Lower Rio Grande Valley was one of the first in the state to adopt it. In our region, the very first was Comal County, and they adopted it in August of 2019. And then we've had different communities adopt it after that. In each of the communities in our region, the governmental entity has designated ACOG as a third-party administrator. That really makes it much easier for the city because we sort of do all the work associated with it. And then we have so we would have an interlocal agreement with Universal City to be your third-party administrator if you choose to move forward in that direction. And then we have partnered with Texas PACE Authority, who does the technical work with us. We sort of divide it up, so we do the education and outreach. And I'm going to say Texas PACE Authority does the heavy lifting with all the technical part of it. We were very, very pleased that after we released our RFP, they were the respondent who scored the highest, well, they're the only respondent, but they have the history of any project that's been funded in the state of Texas has been done in conjunction with Texas PACE Authority. There's a couple of other people in the state that do it, but they have not been successful in being funded, and they really have very deep expertise in administering the program. So we're very proud to partner with them. Next slide. That just covers it, sorry. Next one. And so in our region, just for your information, we had Comal County, next was Hondo, and then Medina County adopted it. And then because Bexar County has not adopted it, each municipality has to do it separately if they want that available for their residents. So Leon Valley has, Fredericksburg adopted it, Bernie has, Guadalupe County adopted it for their entire county. City of San Antonio adopted it March of 2020. Castle Hills has adopted it, Poteet, and Balcones Heights, and we're very pleased that y'all are now considering it. And a couple of the other municipalities are gaining information about it. Next slide. So what is it? It's really an economic development tool. It's locally adopted, and it provides for 100% long-term, low-cost financing for any project that would encourage energy efficiency. And there's a broad list that we'll go over in just a minute. It's for commercial, it's for industrial, and it is for multifamily. So it has to be 5 or more multifamily properties. It is not a residential program. I always emphasize that in the commercial that includes nonprofits, because frequently people forget that nonprofits are also eligible to utilize this program. Next slide. So how does it work? Everybody wants to be cost efficient. Everybody wants new roofs and everybody wants new windows, so why don't all businesses do it? Because they can't afford it. Because if they go and take a bank loan and you have a 20-year loan for a roof or a new HVAC system, usually your loan is going to be for about 3, maybe 5 years if you're lucky, a 3 to 5 year repayment, and they just don't have the return on investment because it stops the cash flow. So most of your businesses are not able to make that investment until they're hitting the road they have to because of the cash flow. So what this does is allows the savings in energy to pay for that improvement. So by having a longer term loan, you're able to spread out that repayment so that you have the benefit of that investment in new technology. At the same time, you're paying for it. So your interest is at a much lower level and it spreads it out over many years. So if you have a 20-year roof, your repayment will be 20 years. If you have a 15-year HVAC system, then it would be 15 years. Part of the technical analysis, and there's there has to be an evaluation by a third-party engineer, that the loan that you're receiving is equal to or less than the life of that improvement. So that you really are able to use the savings from that improvement to repay the cost of it. And now over the last nearly 10 years, it really is, there's enough history, there's enough documentation, it really is working that way. There's a PACE program in many parts of the country. They're all a little bit different, but that's the basic underlying. So the good thing is that it allows the value of that property to increase. You know, if you put a new roof on it, a new HVAC system, and new windows, it really is not only improved from lower energy efficiency, but it really is a better performing asset in the communities also. Next slide. So what qualifies? Just about anything that saves water saves electricity. Your chillers, your boilers, your HVAC systems, your roofs, your windows, low-flow commodes, those faucets in bathrooms that you get mad at because they cut off and on, you can't get all the soap off your hands. The LED lighting in a parking lot. Changing anything that's going to save it. Some of the rainwater distribution systems, anything that saves electricity or water is eligible for it. Next slide. And we call this lowering the pain of repayment. And this really illustrates what I was explaining. So normally you have take your loan out and you have your repayment and your savings go on beyond that, but you've been stuck having to interrupt your cash flow to repay the loan. This really lowers that tower of repayment so that the savings will cover your repayment. Next slide. And it really does just change the story up. It's 100% upfront financing. That includes your architects, it includes the engineers, it includes any attorney work that might be done. Any of those soft costs can be rolled into the loan, and it's totally between the property owner and their financial institution. So there's no one approving it. It's a private negotiation. Very importantly, it doesn't tie up that property owner's borrowing capacity. So they aren't limited in what they can borrow for other improvement. And very importantly also, it transfers with the property. So if the developer, the property owner, is going to make an investment and make improvements and then sell it, he doesn't have to pay that loan off when he sells the property. that lien will transfer with the property. And so it will continue to return and operate in the same manner for the new property owner. Next slide. And so how does it work? The property owner decides if they're interested in it, they decide what they're going to do. They pick their architect, they pick their contractor, they pick their financial institution. They have free rein to do all of that. If the owner, if they meet the requirements, if the third-party analysis does validate that it is valid, that the efficiency will be longer than the repayment period, then they will move forward with that. As the administrator, we will take care of the notifications to the taxing authority, and I'll come back to that in just a minute. We will take care of sending the annual assessment notices, and we will take care of ensuring that's repaid. I think it's very important that this does put an assessment on the property, and yet the owner is only liable for that missed payment. At no point are they ever subject to lose the property, just that missed payment. And very importantly, in the whole history of PACE in the state, there's never been a single project that's gone bad, probably because it does transfer with the property. So that really puts a safety mechanism in there. Next slide. We've really worked hard to put, we call it PACE in a box, to really standardize the program across the state. So for people that are developing in multiple areas, it doesn't change every place you go. So we really do have the templates that are available for municipalities and counties to use. We try to make it user-friendly for both the municipality or the county and the builders or property owners to use. That way it's been working very well so far, and I think the most important thing is that that really is a free market. It's really the property owner and their financial institution. They make all the arrangements. It just guarantees to that financial institution that there is a way for them to ensure that they are repaid because they have the building. Next slide. So the way it works, and Ms. Turner reviewed it for you, we're going to post a report in your intent of resolution on how it's going to work. If you are willing to move forward with it, you pass your resolution of intent, and then you subsequently hold your public hearing. Frequently, and every time in my experience, it's right before the next council member or court meeting, they're going to adopt it. And then you adopt that resolution establishing the PACE program. We would respectfully request that if it is helpful to you, we are very happy to be designated as a third-party administrator. That is not a requirement. We don't have to do that. But if it's something that makes it easier for you, we are very happy to fill that role for our member governments. Next slide. And so what do you get out of it? Why should you do this? It really allows your property owners and your residents to substantially save their utility costs. If it's a multifamily apartment, for instance, depends how they pay their bills. If each individual resident pays their own water or electric bill, then they will be saving that money. Of course, the rent's going to go up a little bit to compensate for it. But you're going to have that savings passed on. It will reduce the demand on the electric grid, and I think all of us are aware of the need for that. It does mitigate the greenhouse emissions. It really enhances the value and the efficiency of the buildings. You have a better economy. It really does help the state's water conservation plan. And I think it really goes a long way to enhancing the attractiveness of the properties. The properties look better once they get new roofs and new windows or new lighting or whatever they're going to do. It's a much more attractive property at that point in time. Next slide. And we've certainly recognized the concern that our elected officials have about the program. And so I think it's very important to understand that there's no tax dollars being used, there's no user fees, there's nothing at risk from the local government's perspective, and there's no funding that's required from the local government to adopt it. There's really no risk to any of the public service that are involved in it, and that was in the state legislation. And it really does have a very limited workload for your city employees. And it does build a very strong local stakeholder support. People that are familiar with it really do embrace it. And it really is, it's interesting. Government is not competing with the private sector like so many programs are. This is a total private, free market operation. Next slide. And so what is the property owner? How do they benefit? It is innovative financing. It is the long-term financing. It is a very strong return on investment because you're going to come out washed, worst case. Your property value is enhanced. In addition, if there's any additional incentives available, if it's historical tax credits, if it's in an opportunity zone, any other tax credits that might be available, if CPS has some credits that all apply. So you can get all of the other incentives that are available plus this, since this is the financing one. And as I said, it's attached to the property, so it transfers with the property, and then the property owner gets to select financial, their lender, their architect, their contractor. It's all up to them. Next slide. And for the lender, it's been found that the financial institutions, once they are familiar with it, because for a lot of them that haven't made these loans, and it is new to this region, it takes a little bit of education to help them understand how the program works. But it is a very secure investment because they've got the property, a lien on the property. The PACE lien takes priority over other liens. And what this means is that if there's a current mortgage on the property, then that mortgage holder has to give permission before the PACE loan can be put in place, because they will be second to the PACE loan. But once they understand that their property on which they now have a lien, is an enhanced property and the value goes up, once they understand that, there usually has not been a problem. It does take a little bit of working with those current mortgage holders if they're not familiar with it. And they really have an enhanced collateral. Next slide. So when you look at the documents that are necessary to do that, and again, we'll be handling in conjunction with Texas PACE Authority all the documents. We have your underlying loan agreement between the financial institution and the property owner, and that is evaluated to make sure it meets and conforms with all the statutory requirements. So then at closing, we have to have, if there is a mortgage, we have to have that lender consent, we have to have the owner's contract, we look at the lender contract, and we file that notice of assessment or lien. Next slide. And now the fun part, to see the examples and the wide range of what can be done with it. My favorite is Dallas Paint and Body Shop, and that's an example of a commercial one. This was an 80-year-old body shop in Dallas, and they did make the enhancements with LED lighting and with some solar plates on it. And I'm going to get closer so I can read that because I can't see that far away, sorry. So the assessment was $74,000, and so that's all the loan was $74,000. And yet their energy reduction is 92% annually. You can go from Dallas Paint and Body and you can look at a glitzy high-rise in Houston, and they did a big thing. This is on West there. They put in new HVAC system, LED lighting, they put different controls. They did an assessment of $1.3 million, and yet they're saving just under $200,000 a year on energy costs. Next slide. I love the Elgin Feed Store. They did that investment, both of those. One is the top, they put a white roof on it. So they did their new roof, they put solar panels all across the top. They invested $120,000, and they're saving $42,000 a year. Next slide. And these are two examples of nonprofits. One is an elder care nonprofit that's in Austin. They put on a white roof, they put the solar panels on, spent $260,000, and they're saving $26,000, so 10% a year. And their repayment was 20 years. If you look, and this is an example of some religious institutions that can use it. Congregations at Israel, again in Austin. Austin was one of the first ones to do it. They put boilers, chillers, they put window film on all their flats. They did just under a $500,000 assessment, and they are saving $40,000 a year. So those are some examples. Next slide. And this is the end. And you can take it from those smaller properties up to Simon property groups. And you can look at your big ones where they really make major investments. Like Simon property, and that was the Austin property, where they did an investment of $10 million. And their savings are 7.3 million kilowatts and 16 million gallons of water. You don't think those low flow commodes and those faucets that cut off and on do much until you see those numbers when it's used in a broad scale. And one of my very favorites is the lead company up in Navarro County. They were in operation for 40 years. They have never had air conditioning in their plant. So they put in an HVAC system, they put in LED lighting, they spent a little over $300,000, and they're saving 30% every single year. So those are examples, I think, of a wide range that can be done. Next one. This is one, and I'm almost at the end. This is in El Paso. It's a hotel that had been closed for years. Windows were out, the air conditioning was non-existent. So they came in and put in a new HVAC system, a new elevator system. You'd be surprised. I'm learning a lot with our building. You'll be surprised. The energy elevators, new elevators, I've just learned this. They really have a factor where they will be generating and capturing the electricity it takes for them to run up and down. They capture that electricity, and then that powers it. Who knew? They put all new windows in and did a lot with their plumbing. So they spent just over $9 million. And when you look at their savings, it's 1.3 million. So huge savings and huge investments, and just depending on what the property is. Next slide. This was up in Dallas, and it was a building that had been closed for about 20 years, and it was redeveloped into a multi-use property. So they've got stores on the bottom, and then you have apartments and condos up above. And they did a large investment, and they're saving 40% every year. Next slide. So just to summarize, and when you look at Texas and you look at PACE, the importance to us as a state, the property owners will have lowered utility bills, they're going to have some energy independence, and they're going to have a property value that is enhanced. The contractors are going to have increased business, a new source of business, and they're going to learn new skills. The lenders will have, again, new loans, a very secure collateral that they're using. The state is having decreased energy demand and decreased stress on our natural resources. And the communities are really seeing enhanced economic benefit and enhanced property value. Next slide. So we'd love to have you consider it. We're available for any questions. And don't think this is it. So if you have questions afterwards, don't hesitate to reach out and call me. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, if there's any questions or any information I can provide, I would certainly welcome that.
Okay, let's do it this way. Obviously, we're looking for this evening, is if council agrees, is the resolution of intent. And I would be glad to entertain a motion if someone's interested in that, and we'll go into our discussion.
Make the motion. The resolution of intent to establish a city property assist clean energy program.
Okay, motion made, Councilmember. Second by Mayor Neville. We'll open it up for discussion. Yes, Mr.
I just want to reiterate one more time, in your agenda packets, it does say that the public hearing and the resolution of approval was intended to be on November 2nd, but we have a very large conference in the city of San Antonio that a lot of us are going to be attending, as well as it is election night. So we have moved that to November 16th, just so that the audience is aware.
And for your information, those of you in the audience, I think council's fairly familiar with ACOG, but that's probably something that you are not very familiar with, the Illinois Area Council of Governments. I encourage you to go on their website, acog.org, right? Check, pardon? .com, and find out what they do, because they provide unbelievable amounts of services to 13 counties. In fact, we go all the way down to McMullen County, and I had the honor of serving as chairman of ACOG in 2016. And I still am amazed at what they accomplish and what they do for our communities. And this is just another opportunity where they would be the third party. No financial obligation by the city whatsoever, but it just gives us an opportunity to have our businesses participate in that. And she showed you the examples of the savings. Unbelievable. So, more discussion? Anyone else would like? Yes. Mr. Shelby.
Quick question. So, we're putting an HVAC system in a roof or something like that. If there's anything that they come across that they have to address because these systems are being put in, things have to be brought up to code. Every time you touch something, it seems like a building. So is anything that needs to bring the construction up to code, is that covered in this as well?
Anything that is normally required would continue to be required. So it's just a financing mechanism. It's a way to finance those improvements. So if the local jurisdiction has certain code requirements that must be met, those continue to be met. It doesn't impact that at all.
Okay, but the funding will cover that as well, or?
It should. If in order to put on the new roof, you have to remove all the rotten wood and put new stuff down, and that would be rolled into your financing, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm slow sometimes, so forgive me.
That's because it sounds too good to be true.
And I'm gonna get there. So what I'm understanding is that we can. You're good. I'm getting feedback, it's driving me crazy. So basically, if I'm gonna improve my building, my commercial building, and it's going to be one of the green energy situations, I get an engineer to come out and evaluate my existing. We put together a team to come up with a new solution. All of that can be paid for with my PACE funds, but I don't know how much it costs until I get the engineering done. So I would be reimbursed for that, I'm assuming.
That would, well, not reimbursed, that's rolled into your loan. So, as you do with anything, the way the program works is if you have an interest in doing it, then, and just for y'all's information, on our website, there are links to a lot of information. We have links to Texas PACE Authority for different financial institutions, different engineers, a lot of different resources, a lot of webinars for property owners, for financial institutions, for a wide range of resources available there. So if you're interested in replacing your roof and you're interested in using the PACE loan program, then you would reach out and you give a declaration of your intent to save energy. And that really says it, that kind of kicks it off that you're going to be qualifying for it. And then you would reach out just as you would anytime to whatever contractor or roofing that would be putting that type of structure in. You work with them, and then the third-party evaluator is really part of the PACE program. And there's a $500 application fee, or if it's a very large project, it's a 0.5% as it tiers on up, is how it's financed. That is paid by the property owner and usually rolled into that loan to finance all of those technical assessments.
Okay, that helps me understand, because I'm always trying to figure out where is that little catch, like it's too good to be true. While I do like ACOG and the scoop further away from the mayor, I do want to know, I mean, where is that funding coming from? What does ACOG get out of it?
Right now, I'm losing money.
Yeah, I was going to say, in my head, I'm
Coming out of that
justifying
fund balance, yeah.
Yeah, in my head, I'm justifying it as much like the economic development thing. The more we improve, the more we get, the more business happens, and the better the properties are. So that's kind of what I'm understanding.
Right, it is, because right now, we're never going to come out of this breaking even. But PACE Authority is a nonprofit, and when property owners do make the formal application, after you've done all your research and you've decided on all of your things and you have your bank and you fill out that application form, then it's, unless it's a very large project, it's a $500 application fee. And then once the loan is secured and it's approved and you've negotiated your loan and you've signed on the dotted line, then there's a formula, about 0.5% of the cost of the loan spread over the term of that loan is usually how it happens, unless it's a very large project, then that's decreased. But that helps.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nobody's making money on this program, I promise you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we're good. Yes, Mr. Maxwell.
Did I misunderstand? That is not for private residence. That is not for private residence.
Correct. In Texas, it is not for residential use, just multifamily, 5 and larger. So in some states, California has residential, but Texas does not have residential.
So, and I'm even slower than my fellow council member. The way I'm understanding this is that if a business wants to go green, they can contact PACE, or they can contact their favorite institute and get a bid for the project they want, probably get the financing, the same financing. The only advantage would be using PACE, they would be able to extend it out over the life of the savings.
Over the life of that improvement. So if it's a 20-year roof, your payments would be spread, and it's usually a lower interest rate, would be spread over the life of that roof. So you're not having to pay for it within the first, say, 3 years.
Okay, versus a 3, 4, 6, or 8 year
Yes.
loan. 2% times 20 years can be a whole lot more than 5% at 4.
Except that you're able to pay for it, and this is the whole thing that makes it work, that the payment that you're paying every year is really paid for by the savings in your utilities.
That's like the thing I put in my new climatizer windows a number of years ago, and I got a 25% reduction in my utility savings. And I took that savings on my own and used it to reimburse my own loan.
Exactly.
I'm giving you
Exactly like that.
I'm not seeing the benefit. I understand the benefit on paperwork sounds really great, but you're saying that the funded project is not breaking even now.
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm not. just our services. I didn't explain that well. I apologize.
The benefit of the program is really for the financial
Yes.
institution that gives the loan. And the second one is for the property owner, because they are paying at a lower interest rate than they normally would, and their payments are extended out longer if they need them.
Okay, this is an alternate finance system for this.
Yes,
I
sir.
can accept that.
Yes, sir.
Now that I know that it is.
Thank you, Mr. Yes, it is. It's all it is.
Okay, so just to distill it, to make it easier for people to borrow money, so they can improve their business, improve their building, reduce energy costs, and we're improving our city, as well as providing economic benefit to the contractors, engineers, architects, and installers.
Very well said. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to make sure I was on the same page.
Okay. I think we had discussion has been concluded, so let's call for the vote then, please, Chris.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Foley.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Remember, there will be a public hearing coming up in future that will be publicized, so anyone in the audience who would like to participate, excuse me, in that public hearing will have that opportunity to do that, and that is part of the overall process. So, okay, very good. Ms. Rath, thank you very much
Thank you, Mayor. I
for joining
appreciate
us this
it.
evening.
And
Okay.
thank you, Council.
Okay, let's move on now
We'll
then.
see you when
We'll
you
go back
adopt it.
now to tab number B, which is to consider ordinance 663-2021, an ordinance of the city of University City providing a reasonable limit on the amount of time to be spent without charge for the repeat public information requesters, requiring payment for the time and expenditures incurred beyond the limit, and providing for expectations, providing for an open meeting clause, and providing an effective date. This is our second reading. Are there any changes, Ms. Turner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Under Section 2, Paragraph B, I did add in the line that the fee schedule is as provided in the Texas Administrative Code, and then gave the full area, so if people wanted to go out and look that up, they could, as amended.
Okay, that was what some of those
Other than that, no
suggestions in
changes.
that first reading. Okay.
Move for approval.
Second, Councilmember Shelby, second by Councilmember Maxwell. Any further discussion? All right, Chris, call for the vote. Oh, yes, Mr. Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to add for the record, I looked over the sections, and as I see it, we're following the same, we haven't changed any fees, we're following the same fees and structure of the code from the state.
Yes, the state dictates how much we provide for open range.
Correct, and I just wanted to add on here that there has been discussion that sometimes we're asking too much money that's already set And I did see this in here, I just wanted to bring it up. This was a part of the statute under 552, 203, 205, waiver of reduction of estimated charges. Let me read this real quick, please. If a governmental body determines that producing the information requested is in the public interest because it will primarily benefit the general public, the governmental body shall waive or reduce charges. Determination of whether providing information is in the public interest rests solely with the governmental body whose records are requested. Additionally, the law allows the governmental body to waive charges if the cost of collecting amount owed exceeds actual amount charged. So there is movement in this structure which hadn't been discussed on the last, when we last discussed it, so I just want to add that. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, then let's go. Vote, please.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Foley.
Okay, the motion passes. And for the record, I forgot to mention this, but Mr. Maxwell arrived before we were voting to executive session. Welcome home, but, thank you. Okay. All right, let's move on now to tab number C. Present and discuss concept plan for 2902 Catbooker Road. This is something we initiated some time ago. We were not getting potential developers.
It's under our planned unit development, which we have within our zoning ordinance, and allows developers or prospective developers to come before the city council to make a presentation to you regarding their project, to allow them to have some feedback from you so they can determine if and when and how they would like to move forward with their project before going through the formal process through the planning and zoning and then to the city council. I believe we do have some members of our planning and zoning commission here listening in as well this evening. We always appreciate the time that they give to these projects and the fact that they're taking the time to hear this on their own before it gets to the planning and zoning commission. So with that, Michael, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Okay, who is going to speak for the firm?
We're going to split it up.
Excellent, come on up, Mr. Killen.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, Mr. Casada, Mayor Williams, council members, city staff, folks in the audience here. Thank you for the opportunity to present proposed residential development on Hatbooker Road. My name is Rob Killen. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Killen, Griffin, and Fairmont. Our address is 100 Northeast Loop 410, Suite 650 in San Antonio. So what I do as a land use attorney is I work with developers and help them through the zoning process, economic development process, the overall entitlement process. Do I need to speak louder?
No, you're doing fine.
Great, thank you so much. And so the folks who are proposing to develop this site on Hatbooker is a team called Vaquero Ventures. I've had the opportunity the last few years to work on a number of projects with them that do high quality Class A multifamily apartment type developments. And so as Mr. Hart and Mr. Casada mentioned, what we're presenting to you tonight is the conceptual plan as part of a planned unit development. And so the property that we're going to be talking about tonight is currently zoned for commercial use. We're proposing changing it to residential use. But there are really two components to our presentation tonight. One is the concept plan. Remember, this is just a concept plan, so you're seeing the overall big picture. This is an opportunity for us to get feedback from y'all and make changes or adjustments to put on there what you'd like to see there or address questions that you might have about design decisions. As I said, I'm a lawyer. We've got an architect here, we've got the developers here. They're going to be talking about the brass tacks. They're going to talk about why they made certain decisions and taking in your feedback. The second element that we're going to be talking about tonight is the financing structure, which is called a public facilities corporation. And it's a financing structure that ultimately yields a significant revenue stream for the city of Universal City, and really a windfall at the end of the day. So what we'd like to do is start with the presentation of the conceptual plan. And I would encourage you all, I'm going to ask Brandon and Patrick to come up in a second and start talking about that. I would ask you to interrupt them at any time. They have thick skin, so stop them, ask them questions, because again, this is an opportunity for us to hear the feedback. And then when they finish presenting and I've heard your comments on the concept plan, the design piece, Scott Reimer is going to talk about the Public Facilities Corporation and that financing structure, and then we'll defer to you, and I know you probably have the opportunity to consult with your financial advisor or staff as we go through the process. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to sit down and invite Patrick and Brandon to come up.
Thank you for coming today. As Rob mentioned, we're with Vaquero Ventures. It's a Fort Worth-based company. It's one of the largest single-tenant net lease developers in the U.S. Preferred developer for Starbucks, 7-Eleven, and O'Reilly's. Our corporate headquarters has about 100 employees. And Vaquero wanted a multifamily branch, and that's why our team was hired by Vaquero to do multifamily. So if you'll turn your attention to the screen, again, I'll go over the concept of the project on 2902 Booker, Pat Booker, and Patrick here with our architecture firm can describe the materials as we get to it. Okay, if you can't see from there, probably, but here's zoomed in. Most of y'all will know Pat Booker. It's 2902, right next to the life storage and veterinarian there. So what we're going to show is our preferred option here. You'll see the topography on Pat Booker there. It's actually about 900 in the southwest corner, and it moves down to the northeast border of the property. So the water will drain from our property to the northeast. Can't much see that massing here. I'm going to move to the colored massing of the gray here. So you'll see this is our preferred layout where we have our 9 residential buildings as well as a clubhouse. This provides the best view, and this also, you'll notice, it may be a little hard to see, I'll show you in a second, we have a detention pond on the northeast border as well, so any water that hits our site is going to be detained and slowly leak out from that detention. It will not cause an oversupply of water in the nearby neighborhood or anything like that. You can see here we've got amenities shown. I apologize, it's not very big, but we will have a pool with cabanas. We'll have 2 amenity courtyards. Those would be playgrounds. We'll have a dog park as well, and we will have a dog wash station. You know, we have over 50% of residents on average with dogs these days. So anyways, very friendly. You won't feel like you need to leave. It's going to be a nice place to relax. So we are showing 3 building types at this time, anywhere from 24 units to 30 units in each building. You can see here we've got 6 units, or 6 A's, 2 B's, and 1 C. Any questions regarding what you're seeing just in the general massing right there?
Any questions?
Okay. Sure. We did provide this layout as requested. This layout will show you this, the buildings turn more towards Pat Booker. It's not our preference. You will see more of the building face, but it doesn't allow a good view corridor to the backside of the property, and it also isn't. It doesn't lend itself to the best circulation vehicular-wise for our residents. It's a little bit harder to get to the back buildings. You kind of feel secluded, and so it's not our preference. It would show the buildings more, but and this shows you again colored massing. It would have the same amenities. Let's go into the building types just very briefly. So this is the clubhouse. We like the paseo that passes through the middle. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Whoever that is zooming in. So we'll have a fitness center in there as well. The fitness center will face the pool. It's very inviting. You know, this view as you walk into the property for potential residents. You'll see the pool. You'll want to come here. You'll want to hang out. It's a very inviting place, and we've done a lot of work on this clubhouse to make it that way. At this time, if you'll zoom back out, thank you. Patrick, if I can bring you up, this is Patrick Hazard with our architecture firm, just to describe some of the exterior materials that we're seeing. This is the clubhouse first.
My name is Patrick Hazard with Manley Anderson Architects. So on the clubhouse here, we're incorporating a couple materials. We did incorporate stone, masonry material. We have 2 colors of fiber cement siding, and then we're using an accent siding that has a wood look to it to create some texture on the building. Still trying to keep timeless materials so the building will age well, not just physically age well, but architecturally, design-wise, age well in the community. Lots of large windows, natural light, just an open feeling to it. Two more slides.
Okay. And just a little more. Or do you want to move the buildings? Right there.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the building. Okay, so for the buildings here, this is a typical apartment unit. This is actually building A. This is the, I can't read that one. This is our typical building. Yes, there we go. All right, so that's the typical building. We put a minimal amount of stone. These are the buildings that are going to be set back from path booker. We still have that stone accent on it. Again, we still have the two different fiber cement siding, the wood look fiber cement board. We've also added a standing seam metal siding, which you can see there on the to the right of the stairs where we have the balcony, that dark gray. If you go 2 more slides, or sorry, 1 slide, right there, 1 slide. This is the building that actually would be fronting on path booker in option 1. This is our curb appeal building. We've increased the stone facade on this greatly. We're gonna get more bang for our buck this way. This is what you're gonna see. It gives that curb appeal, the excitement, really sets the tone for this development and for the city. Any questions or comments?
Everybody? Okay, Vice President. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when, looking at the image, I see you've got a lot of stone on that front building on the clubhouse. We've got banding going on. You're showing a specific look on that stone. Is that an actual cut stone? Is it veneer, you know, thin veneer stuff? What are we talking about with the stone on that?
It would be a thin, I mean, it would be a veneer, like a 1.5 inch limestone, but not a composite.
Okay. On the wood look fiberboard, is that a rain screen or is that, what are you thinking about with that?
No, it'd be a traditional siding product.
And when we say the cementitious siding, basically hardy plank?
Yeah, hardy, beachy hop.
Okay, what kind of sizes? Because when I look at the rendering, basically I'm seeing a real tight lap on that. Is that what you're expecting? Because every time we see cementitious fiberboard come in, we get, you know, this kind of lap joint. We get, you know, 10 or 12 inches or greater.
Right now, we were anticipating a 6-inch exposure.
Because the rendering looks more like you've got like a 2-inch exposure. So I feel like that was a little bit of dirty pool on the rendering part. So because I kind of got excited about it, I thought we were looking at one thing, and then when I got into the details of it, I was like, oh. So I was a little bit nuts because you can. When you show the visualization of something, and a lot of people aren't excited about the hardy plank idea, the cementitious fiberboard. I'll go ahead and use the brand name because a lot of people understand that better. To lead them down one path, but then to come in with something a little bit different. It's a little bit unfair to people that don't do this on a regular basis. So just want to make sure that council understands when we're looking at that. We're not talking about this tight line on the images. It's a much larger gap between those lines. So,
I mean, the attempt of the conceptual rendering there was for a 6-inch, and it might be a little bit off. Again, it's conceptual. We can certainly update the renderings to make sure it's more accurately shown.
Now, overall, I was all excited. When I opened these things up, I was like, those are beautiful. I like you know, the articulation. You've got that going on. It talks about you have a standing seam metal panel. Again, I was part of that and kind of was happy to see some metal going in because it's a nice architectural feature. It can be. Some people, y'all did a great job. But there was a few things that I did want to have a little bit better understanding on, and that was kind of the stone and then that wood look fiberboard and how you were intending to do that. But that's all I have for now, Mr. Mayor. We'll look at it more later.
Sure, okay, good. Mr. Maxwell.
Thanks. Just to refresh, what demographics are we targeting this for?
It's mostly Well, so we've got 198 one-bedrooms in this, so it's not necessarily going to be families, but it is a very family-oriented area. So we wanted to make sure to include 2 beds and 3 beds. It's your young professionals, it's even, could be newly divorced people. It's, you know, and your small families as well. But, you know, we have a playground. I also forgot to mention, if you look over here, we do include a bus lane in this case to get the buses off of Pat Booker when they're picking up. So we're aimed towards young families, young professionals, and like I said, it could possibly be your new divorcees and stuff like that.
Okay, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Talk to me about the detention pond. It's covered. Is it covered or is it open?
It's open.
Okay. And is there anything to keep the water moving? Do we have to worry about mosquitoes or anything like that?
I can't tell you whether or not you have to worry about mosquitoes. If it is covered, if we have the possibility of making it covered, I'm going to prefer covered as a developer because it's a better look. So we'll look into that as well. But I can't tell you whether or not there's any worry about mosquitoes.
Yeah, I was just saying, I mean, that's a large standing thing of water near a residential area. I mean, you've got the apartment complex itself plus the residences behind.
It's not a retention pond, it's a detention. So it's not going to hold.
Okay, I would say, how long will it hold?
I'd have to have the civil tell you the rate, but I can get that for you. The rate at which it would let out each
The
gallon.
purpose is for it to catch the runoff so that when it drains off the property, it drains off slower.
Sure.
It should not have water in it unless we've had a big rainstorm.
Okay.
And then it should dissipate within several days.
With your typical rainstorm, it's not going to fill that up.
Okay. I just wanted to
With
be
a
clear.
heavy rainfall, we might start to fill it up, but again, it's going to stay around.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And I will point out, any rainfall on our property will be captured. It's not dumping onto Pat Booker.
Mr. Neville?
And you're still looking at open-ended steel stairways going up to the 3rd floor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As a
I don't
person,
understand this day and time why persons still have to lug things up to 3rd floor level. It boggles my mind that there can't be some other kind of amenity that helps put this place on the map.
And Mr. Neville, just so you understand, until they get to a 4th story, they are not required to put in an elevator. I understand your point.
I wouldn't let my granddaughter move into one.
If it's any consolation, if they're newly divorced, they don't have anything to move up anyway.
Point well taken. However, also I just can't believe that you're coming in with hardy plank and other things in a place that's on Pat Booker Road that enters the Universal City. It seems to me that something else could be done, especially with what you're trying to get out of it from the rent that you're going to be using. You know, I love the word you cementatious siding, you know, as if to say, wow, that's great, when it really isn't. And wood fiberboard, that's incredible. I better stop there.
You're getting opinions.
Sure.
That's what you're here for this evening, so let's press on, Mr. Majorian.
Yeah, you were talking about it. Tell me again the demographics you're looking at here. You said younger.
Young professionals, I mean, it's probably more your late 20s, early 30s. Those will be typically our 1-bedrooms. You're not going to in this area, we're probably not going to have any kind of college students. Is there a demographic you're worried about us in attracting?
As a matter of fact, yes, there is. This community is a very big retirement community as well. And to Mr. Neville's point, we had another thing going on. So at one time explaining, you know, we're near a military base, so building up, we have to watch, you know, we can't expand, we're landlocked here. So usually in a landlocked area, you're thinking about future projects, you're thinking, okay, we need to build up, not out, because we don't have, but we have to watch out for that as well. But I do understand that it takes 4 stories to have the whole building with an elevator and access for disabled access to the whole building.
we are required to provide essential access to ground property, ground level.
Correct. Ground level, you said there's 108 units on the bottom?
Yes.
I guess what I'm getting to is I don't like the idea that this is programmed in for that demographic in this particular area. That the oversight of elderly is not being looked at.
We can absolutely take it into consideration. That is not a locked-in demographic by any means. I think this design lends itself to anybody looking to rent within our rental.
And don't get me wrong, it looks very nice and everything, but as you're taking, as you're taking suggestions, like you said, you have a place for the buses to pull up. We don't have buses out here, actually. School buses. School buses, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But our big demographic is you know, we have a retirement community, and I would not like that overlooked.
We can absolutely brainstorm on that and see what we can improve for better maybe.
And again, you're just looking for ideas, and that's my 2 cents.
That's why we're here, giving you. Okay, Mr. Maxwell.
Just a caveat on that one, I think the young professionals is in that neighborhood, I really like that idea, because I know our 20-year plan down the road in the aviation district is designed for senior living and things of that nature, how we're designed in that area, as we want staycation or stay in place as we age out. And I think this right here might be a good concept with the younger generation, higher income at that age, it seems to be, and smaller apartments. It's not very large square footage. So I like the concept, I think, as originally planned. And then we need to, I guess, come to a senior center in another location. Here, closer to the airplanes when they don't come over.
I did want to make sure that everybody saw the concept imagery before we. Here are some typical unit layouts as well. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. If there's any questions, we can go over that. This shows you our unit mix. We'll get the same amount of 324 total units on the table, no matter if it's option 1 or 2. And this shows you the concept imagery. I believe Councilmember Gillespie, you might have been looking at this when talking about the siding. But please stop me if anybody would like to review these a little bit more. But this, in our opinion, this is a very attractive garden product, and we can of course look at any possibility of adding more and increasing our materials. It's just, as y'all probably know, the construction costs right now are pretty astronomical, but we do what we can because we're not going to build anything that we don't feel proud of. At the end of the day, if it doesn't lease up, we don't do well. So.
Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick questions. You've listed the type of materials that you're looking at. What is the expected life before remodel required? Will be required on some of these materials? I mean, are we talking 20 years, or are they going to be?
So most of the fiber cement products, and they somewhat vary, but it usually is a 20 to 25 year warranty on that.
Okay.
Limestone, but.
Well, yeah, the fiberboard. I was thinking it was a wood fiberboard.
Well, the wood fiberboard is still a fiber cement product.
It's still fiber cement. Okay, it didn't say cementation.
Yeah, but it still has, it would look good, but it's still.
Okay.
So it's still 20, 25 years.
And the same thing with standing steel. So we're looking at a product that's going to be pretty well maintained from a building material standpoint. It's going to have a good life on it from a building material standpoint, as opposed to sometimes apartments get thrown up very cheaply and very quickly they start showing their age. Okay, thank you. I mean, I think probably possibly from a city standpoint, we would expect that if we come in with a brand new, nice, upscale apartment complex, that we can motivate some of our existing apartment complexes to step their game up.
They may not have much choice.
Yeah. As well as this is all relatively walking distance of the Triangle Center, or the Triangle Center.
Triangle Shopping.
Thank you. I'll make sure I'm using the right. So, I mean, potential see an increase in walk-up business in that area, improve businesses, fill empty spots. I like it. Thank you.
Any further questions before I bring up Scott Brown for the financial structure?
Let's go ahead and proceed and see if anything comes up after that.
Thank you. And while Scott comes up, from the staff perspective, we recognize that the financing structure is probably the first time that you're going to be hearing it. Of course, Scott's going to be here to talk about it from the Vaquero perspective. But I do want to point out that, as we all know, that Vickers Q. Rover with Specialized Public Financing is our investment advisor. He was not able to make it this evening, so in the back, if we could raise his hand, we have Stephen Adams, and you can certainly ask Scott, but if Stephen, you can also ask Stephen questions if you'd like about the public facilities corporations here from the Dallas area, where PFCs are a little more welcome than
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'd first like to start off by saying, Councilman Neville, I agree with you. 3 stories is a long way to walk up, and unfortunately, it is a consequence of the financial constraints on this project. But I do agree with you. I'm here to talk to you tonight. I'm the president of Vaquero Multifamily. Our group is housed in San Antonio. We're at 1003 Northwest Military, San Antonio, Texas, 78231. And we're pleased to be here tonight. This Public Facility Corporation is a state statute that governs this, and it gives public entities like the City of Universal City, City of San Antonio Housing Authority, San Antonio Housing Trust. It gives governmental entities the ability to partner with local developers, or with developers. And the quid pro quo is the development entity gets a full property tax abatement, and it provides, in our structure, what we've offered Universal City, is to be a 25% owner in the economic benefit of the apartment community. Again, this is governed by statute. This has been used in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. I've personally done 4 of them with a previous employer, and it's a bit of a niche financing structure that ultimately de-risks the transaction from the developer standpoint, because eliminating the property taxes on a property reduces your operating expenses between 40 and 50%. So it increases your NOI significantly, and allows the repayment to the capital partners and to the lender much easier. It also requires the project to reserve 50% of the units to residents making 80% or less of AMI. AMI in Bexar County is $74,000. So 80% of that number would be approximately $60,000. And then we apply an underwriting factor. We use about 35% of that income to qualify the resident for that particular unit. There's full background checks, criminal credit, all of that used in standard luxury, multifamily product. So there's no leakage in terms of the quality of the resident. To kind of put this in a real world perspective, I believe that this was built at our cost, which we're assuming about $52 million to build this project. It would have a stabilized tax bill of about $1 million to just rough numbers. And I believe our proposal, by including you all in 25% of the economics of this transaction, yields. Now I could be wrong on I don't know if cap rates are going to continue to compress. I don't know construction costs are going to be where I think they are right now, but I think this is going to generate about an $8 million economic benefit to the city. There's no investment required on your part. There's no bonding capacity that's used. There's no credit used by us. The elimination of the property tax is the but-up moment, for the capitalization of this deal. Vaquero, is a very substantial company. We probably, on the commercial side, we probably start 125 projects a year, so we can get this capitalized finance and really do a good job. What I love about this structure so much, this really is a fantastic product, in my opinion. The cementatious siding and all that. We were currently, our previous employer, we've really done some knocked out projects in this PFC structure that are leasing at above market rents for the market side of the transaction. We've been able to really do incredible common area amenities. The units themselves will be far superior. We've looked at all of the competitive set here in the market. We're going to have frameless showers, dual vanities, a wood type flooring. This is, I don't get involved in projects that I really am not proud of, won't do it. And, this will set a new bar, in my opinion, for anything multifamily-wise in this market. And I can tell you, that's just the way we do it, and wouldn't consider it otherwise. So, the structure sounds, when you dig into it, and you get your financial advisor and your lawyers to look at this is a structure that's been done. It's going to continue to be done, and I think it's a very innovative thing and the reason I came to small communities like this in and around the area is because it's a really innovative structure for you all to frankly monetize what we'd otherwise be paying in taxes, and that's that's the 30,000 foot overview. I'm happy to dive into any specifics with you. I'll just open it up to you all.
Any observations, Mr. Shelby?
I have one more question. What's your expected construction completion time? How long would it take you to build this?
It's about a 22-month duration.
Okay, so just under 2 years. Okay. And I know I meant to ask this question earlier, but I know there's a bit of a tree line between the residential area, the existing residential area, and the construction site. That's outside your property line. There's no trees. That are going to be.
I'm going to ask Brandon.
Correct. That's currently a drainage easement. There's also a pipeline that goes there. We won't touch any of those mature trees, and it creates a nice buffer between us and the single families that back up to it.
Excellent. And one last question: is there? I don't know. I hadn't been paying attention to it for quite some time since the yard was cleaned up. Is there any? Are you having to do cleanup, or was it already done on the land?
So we don't know yet. We wanted to get feedback from you all on the project, and and to see if this structure was meant to come to clean up the automobiles that have been moved from the property.
Right, but there's obviously.
Well, we don't know. We haven't done subsurface investigations yet, but.
Do you expect anything to stop this from happening?
I don't. I've been involved in some nastiest environmental problems, and it's money fixes it. So, that's the short answer.
Thank you very much.
So would anyone like to hear from Mr. Adams the city's financial advisor regarding TFCs. I'm just asking to consider the count in case you have any specific
Are
questions.
we okay with that, or would you like Mr. Strathers? Okay, yeah, let's,
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, thank you for having me, and let me just start saying, we haven't seen any of their financials or their presentation of the proposals, but I will say that I agree that these PFCs, there's probably thousands of them, apartment complexes around the state, not to mention the nation, have been financed with these. They have been quite successful. And they've worked out really well. From our perspective, on a project like this, we ask our cities to kind of take a global look at these types of projects. Does it fit within your master plan? Is it where you want it? Is it fixing a blighted area that would not otherwise be fixed? Is it somehow replacing something that would generate more sales tax, or just adding sales tax to the city, and look at it more from a global perspective. In terms of the PFC itself, they're very easy to create. The council creates it, appoints the board, can be on the board. It's a financing vehicle that allows a couple of things. It allows them, the developer, to take advantage of the benefits that they're talking about. They can't do it without a PFC. It allows them to partner with whoever creates a PFC, whether it's the city or the county or somebody else. There's multiple people that can create this and work with them on this project. From our perspective, what we do, we look at all the documents, we read the documents, we try to present every risk to our clients, let them understand every risk that's associated with this from a cash flow basis. And the risks are kind of a couple-fold. You know, the first risk is it just doesn't work. We spend a lot of staff time and your time, like tonight, and for whatever reason the complex doesn't work. We mitigate that by working with experienced people, like quite frankly these guys are. You make sure you have good partners that you work with. And from that perspective, I think you've got a good team here. From my perspective, it's a question of what's in the documents once they're written. Where does this, the city fall in the cash flows? What do the cash flows look like? And then is this something that the city wants to do on that property at this time, from a perspective of your own development? Short of that, I think I don't have any other comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
doesn't look like there are any, so thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Okay, this is our opportunity to address the proposed project. If there's anything else anybody thinks you would like to, yes, no.
The only school we have around there is the Little Elementary. How far is that from this property? Do you know?
It's only a little over a mile away from the property.
Unless you go over 2 miles to the school zone, people, kids got to walk back and forth unless their parents pick them up. And it's already a terrible situation up there, but still the elementary. So I don't know. It's a shame that they can't get bused, but we don't have a commercial bus traveling in Universal City. I can't afford to have people come in here. So I don't know what that bus lane is for. Provide for people. I can see some of the young airmen, maybe even some of the young officers of Joint Base San Antonio Randolph. The young airmen still living at poverty level, some still getting food stamps, some have young children, and young officers. I feel for them. I don't know. And I look at some of the renderings of the type of things you want to put around it. Doesn't have much, but that's all. I don't know if you want to address any of it.
Anything I wanted to address regarding that?
Thank you.
So, I don't play in that world, so I'm having a little bit of an issue. After 75 years, this reverts back to the city?
Yeah, so the way these are structured now, or the way this will be structured, we will deed the property to the city at closing. The city will actually own all the improvements, and our investment group will have a 75-year lease back from the PFC. And it will include all the improvements that we've constructed, and that leasehold interest is a mortgageable instrument. It's like owning fee, and from an investment standpoint. So at the end of the term, you will own this. But what's more than likely going to happen, our business plan is to sell this within 5 years, which creates your economic interest, triggers that. The next buyer will come in. You'll get several bites at the apple on this, but probably in year 20, I would imagine, when there's going to need to be substantial investment put back into the property to keep it leasable. A buyer will come in and want to put more investment dollars into it, and we'll probably cut a new arrangement very similar to what we're doing, and agree to do a number of things, and it will just kind of keep the project going.
So,
Would that extend the PFC beyond 75 years?
Only if you wanted to. Only if the city wanted to. You're going to do an evaluation at the end of, say, 20 years, and somebody's going to come in and say, look, X, Y, and Z needs to be done to the project, and we're willing to invest the capital to do it, but we'd like to add another 20 years to the lease term. And you'll probably do it because you're not in the business of owning apartments.
Yeah, because as I've looked around at some of our other apartments, I don't know if they're 75 years old, but I thought, Lord, I want to own that.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing kind of makes me nervous. Can you explain to me a little bit more about what is the 25%? 25% goes to UC. What does that mean?
So the way I've structured these in the past, and what we're proposing to you all, is after our investment is paid back, and after there's a preferred return on that investment, which is what we will need to go get the capital, you all will participate in the profits above that 25%. So if there's $1 made, you'll make 25 cents, and we'll make 75 cents.
After your investment is paid back.
Correct.
You said this thing's going to cost $52 million?
I believe that's our best estimate,
How long
right?
does it take you to make $52 million?
Well, when we sell it, it'll probably sell for $72 million or 70.
Business.
It'll trade on a market cap rate. So a new buyer will come in, and when we go to sell it, they'll be buying a cash flow, they'll be buying yield, and you're going to participate in the delta between the returns that we're getting and then what the market will bear. And currently, we think that will generate, about $8 million in total revenue to the city. It's three things, excuse me. You get a $250,000 fee at closing, and this is not exclusive to you all. This is kind of what the market is for these transactions. You get a $250,000 fee at closing. You get a $25,000 annual fee to administer. Somebody's got to look at this. There has to be a half full-time equivalent, somebody looking at this within the city. So that would go to pay that. And then you get, before, our structure will provide at least 25% of the property tax savings to go to the city. So before we make any money or capital is reverted at the end of 5 years, if the taxes were $1 million, let's say, 25% of those property tax savings, instead the project didn't perform like we thought it would, that would be the minimum that you all would receive in ground rent or in rent. So 25% of the property tax savings would inure to the city no matter what.
When you say 8 million, is that over 75 years?
No, that's over a 5-year, that's over a 60-month hold.
And how much of that's on the sale?
I'm sorry?
How much of that is on the sale?
Okay, let me just pull, I'm getting deal marked a little bit here, excuse me. So the project would cost $52 million to build, and our disposition cap rate, it'll generate an $81 million sales price. There's also cash flow over that period of time, over that 5 years. So when your financial advisor looks through our pro forma and the 78 pages that are attached to this, and up with all the formulas, that generates your total take, if our numbers are correct, is $8.3 million over a 5-year period.
So, okay, got another one. I'm trying to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of it. So if we're talking about 50% of this is set aside for, what did you call it?
The folks making 80% or less of area median income.
Okay.
The generic term is affordable housing.
Okay. How do you, what kind of rates do you charge them?
Well, if you, let's say our 1-bedroom apartment is $1,100, and somebody's making the $74,000 number, take that down to 80%, that's $60,000. And then we apply as an underwriting standard for our residents, they have to make 35% of that, to qualify. So whatever that turns out to be, they could fit into any one of those units. So just do some quick math, it's probably up to $1,600, $1,700 a month that a family of 3 could pay, down to somebody paying $1,100 for a unit. And our market units will be a little bit more expensive, but not materially. What this really does is this is a tool that drives, in my opinion, a standard multifamily for a community that you don't have right now. And this financing mechanism allows us to do that.
I think that's all I have for right now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Maxwell, Mr. Shelby, then Mr. Maxwell.
Okay, thank you. I want to talk risk and return here. Where's the risk line on this? If the PFC, the land is turned over, and I'm reading this and I've read it about 5 times, and I want to make sure I really understand this. The PFC is going to own the land. It says conveyed, the land in the apartment complex. I want to make sure I understand what that term means.
Are you addressing me?
Whoever can answer the question.
So, yes, it's conveyed to you at closing. This is a separate entity that's created. It's a separate corporation that's created by the city. So I'm not going to say the city or the PFC isn't going to get sued if there's a slip and fall, because you'll be named in the lawsuit just like we will. But it's not. They don't pierce the PFC itself. So there's no liability from that standpoint other than just standard business liability that we all have. There's no financial investment on your part. I think what could happen is, like your financial advisor suggested, maybe we don't build it properly. Maybe we don't lease it up properly. Maybe we missed the mark on who the potential resident is. Then this could all be a colossal waste of time you know, and you don't generate the kind of income that I'm projecting here. But from a pure risk standpoint, let's kind of break down what you guys are receiving right now. If the land is valued at $2 million, and you're getting, your city tax rate here is like 38%, I mean 38 cents of 100? 0.58, excuse me, I'm sorry. So you're getting $10,000 a year on this property right now. And so you're making 80 times that under our scenario at the end of year 5. Potentially. I mean, listen, there's a very sophisticated Wall Street kind of company who will be the equity behind this. You know, there's a lot of smart eyes that are going to be looking at this to see if this is something we all want to take risk on. It's a substantial equity investment on our part. I believe the equity investment is $18 million equity investment between us and whoever our limited partner is going to be on this. So if we get it wrong, which may happen, that a lot of smart people are going to get it wrong too. And you know, there'll be banks that are financing it, there'll be equity partners that are doing it. We'll be looking at it, our experience. We're not doing this to not turn a profit. So I'm pretty comfortable with the range of expectations on this.
And where I'm going at is because it's conveyed to the PFC, and the PFC is a separate entity of the city. You know, and I want to make sure I understand this. That's why you guys are here, is to make sure I completely understand what I'm reading. Is that, you know, when I look at this, it's a period of 75 years. At what point is there a possibility that the city gets to end up holding the bag on something that we are responsible for? We have to somehow figure out how to, you know, let's just say something major happens, or it doesn't work out, or you're not able to lease it. I could go through all the possible negative effects, but when it comes down to it, you know, if you were to build a building and the building's valued at $70 million, let's just say, you're talking about selling yourself. Let's say $50 million, because you were talking about it's worth $2 million now, and we get about $10,000 in ad valorem. At $50 million of value, we get roughly 25 times that, which is about $250,000 of ad valorem. If it's owned and operated by outside of the PFC. So that's a solid number that we can depend on. I'm more concerned about, you know, yes, we're committing to this property, this piece of land, and the structures built upon it. So I'm trying to distill down the risk to the city.
So you'll hire a great law firm to negotiate these. There's a few in the state that are really good at it. And you'll have your pick of the litter who you want to do that. And these, there's a lease between the development entity and the PFC. And the lease will have all kinds of default mechanisms in there that really give the city an incredible amount of power if we don't live up to those standards. If we don't live up to those standards, you can withdraw from the PFC, and it's our risk as the developer and the equity investment that is going to ensure that doesn't happen, that we don't violate those covenants within the lease because we've got too much at stake. So there's a withdrawal mechanism. I'm not an attorney, but I've done enough of these to understand where the push and pull is and where the hammer is that you all have. And believe me, you'll have plenty of hammers if we don't do what we're signing up to do.
How many of these have you already done?
I've done 4.
And how long have you been running them?
So this is a fairly new product in San Antonio. The first one that we did with our former employer was started construction 2 years ago. And it's just delivering right now. The others are under development. And, you know, this is just a tool in my particular tool chest that I took with, you know, my knowledge about the structure that I took with me to a new employer. So I don't have any currently that we're running. I know they've met with a great deal of success here in the San Antonio County area. You know, so there's several groups that do these. We just happen to be one of them.
Mr. Adams, you have any?
Yeah, I'm interested in the city, our side, I'd like to hear from our side too.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, in my opinion, your risk probably isn't in the first 5 years with these operators. It's going to be two things. One, if interest rates go up, and what he's calling cap rate, well, then the value is going to go down because it's an annuity, right? So instead of making $8 million, you make something, whatever the market is at that time. And then after that, you know, over the life, this thing, the way these work that I've seen, it goes from a developer to somebody that's going to be a yield investor, and they're going to depreciate it to the point they're going to get yield out of it. My experience is they don't put a lot into it. They sell it to somebody else that's going to rebuild it, restore it, refill it up, because it's probably going from a low rent, maybe not fully occupied after the yield investor depletes it, if you will, to somebody that comes back and starts over and re-depreciates it. That's my experience with these, and so my opinion is that the risk comes later.
Does it ebb and flow to it?
Correct. And that's what's happening to your existing units probably as well.
Yes.
They're going through the same phase, the way apartments work.
We're just not vested in those properties.
Correct. And the other risk to me is opportunity cost of that property. And I don't know anything about the property or the city too much. I've driven through for my first 100 days. But what would be there if they're not, and when would that occur? And present value all that back to today's dollars if it's going to be something that creates a lot of sales tax, for example. And then from a community perspective, you know, there's a lot of, I guess, I would say criticism from perspective that the school district's not going to get any taxes, but it's going to get a lot of students. And basically you're getting those tax dollars. You're not the school district, but that's one thing that is talked about sometimes with this.
And what is our parachute out of this thing? No, that's my last question, I'm sorry. Yeah. Do we have a, do we have a, you know, what is our, the only way out is if it's not being, if it's determined that it's mismanaged, or they're not meeting their end of it?
There, it's like you said, there's outs if it's not occurring, and in my view, I don't think it'll happen while they're here. You don't know who's going to be here in 5 years, and if they, what kind of entity that would be that you would be talking to.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry to go over one more time.
We need to kind of wrap this up. Again, our idea was to give them some input for what we thought. Let's not continuing asking questions. I think they know exactly where our concerns are. So, Mr. Mello, you have
one concern. We have been looking at that property for a long time for a commercial place, not another apartment. We cannot afford to lose any more commercial place in this landlocked city.
Tom, did you?
I just had one, and actually, Councilman Chung took down the pathway that I was going a little more eloquently. One question: when we deed over a new property area with parks, we absorb all the maintenance. What about when, at the end of this one, we deed it? Who's going to take care of the ground that's around the apartments?
We will. So in our operating model, we have a excuse me, I'm sorry. In our operating model, that your financial advisor will go through. There are operating expenses that are industry norms, that will generate enough, the rents will generate enough income to pay those operating expenses and maintain it. It's in our, again, we're totally aligned on this to make sure it stays managed in a first-class manner.
I just want to, I kind of agree with the consensus. I'm concerned about having a vested interest in it as far as the city goes. But I can offer you a real good introduction to a PACE program.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I can introduce you to a young lady that can introduce you to some, to a PACE financing program.
Yeah,
To build this green.
Yeah, well, you know, I wish I
It's
had.
a lot of money.
I wish I had Ms. Rath doing my presentation for me. She did a great job. But you know, we're here to specifically try to do this structure, and that is our interest in doing this development.
Thank you, Mayor. I know you're trying to wrap it up, so maybe I can push it to the end for the council in giving feedback for Vaquero development is one, just general comments, yay or nay on the use of the property, yay or nay on something to the effect on the overall design material layout, and then a general feeling of how you feel about the PFC concept, so that when they leave tonight, they actually do something concrete. Is that fair to say that? I don't want to speak for you.
Yes, we have the land tied up. We're spending money on architects and engineers and trying to get as knowledgeable as we can about the property and design something that would be of interest to you all. But any community I go into, I'm not interested in pushing a rock uphill. And if this isn't something for you all, I'd rather know it now than another time.
Right,
So,
which is why I'm asking for some clear guidance for him, because remember, this is their time and their money that is going into this, so if we can just be a little more concrete in the responses for them.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman, just to be clear, this isn't an action item.
No, it is not. This is just a presentation and feedback from us to see if they want to proceed with all. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have, does anybody remember how much we thought we were proposing when we were going to make off the golf course? So that's my concern. I don't know enough about the PFC. I haven't. It scares me. I loved your layouts. I loved your renderings. I harassed your architect, and he was spot on. So I am scared. You understand the PFC. I'm not very familiar with it, so I am a little leery about it. So that's my general comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I think you see some of the concerns.
Sure.
Some of the, I think the questions that were posed to you should give you some food for thought as to how you may want to proceed. There was concern by the mayor, obviously, with the fact that this is zoned as a commercial, so there would have to be a change. That's why eventually it would have to go through the planning and zoning commission, and then it would then come back to council for the final rendering on that. So I understand, you understand the process.
Well, golf courses never make any money. And multifamily projects are the best asset class in the real estate business to own. And we'd love to be a part of the community if you all would like to do this. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Arthur. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your comments. I really appreciate the idea where you guys can present to us and we can give you some initial feedback that could help you as you proceed or continue to look at this project.
This is a really great forum. I really love the setup and your public plan and this opportunity to present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, all right. Next item on the agenda is tab number E, discuss and to consider the FY 2020-2021 budget amendment.
I'm sorry, I'm writing it down real quick. Yes, as you know, at the end of the budget year, we need to identify unpaid bills that were the money we received for projects that we held off on or couldn't get the item. So what we're going to do now is present the budget amendments to the city council for the last fiscal year. And just want to let you and remind you and everyone that is here is that the previous year's budget is never really done and or closed until after the audit is done. So there may still be some other budget amendments that you'll see that come in at the end of the audit process. The auditors will be starting sometime around the second week of November. They start then, and then what happens is school districts then start working on their audits, and they have to be done before us. So they'll jump over to schools for a while, and then they'll come back and finish ours. So as you know, sometimes it takes us a while to get through the audits, but we believe that we're in very good shape at this point. So Jessica Moore, our finance director, is going to go through each of the funds that we have for the city, and she's going to talk about the adjustments that need to be made and what those adjustments pertain to. Jessica?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you can see for the general fund, we have an adjustment of $412,000 for tax revenue. That is the result of additional sales tax that was received. Under our license permits and fees, there was additional revenue of $357,000. Our fines, $56,000, and other revenue of around $46,000, which pertains to our court fees that are paid for tickets and warrant payments. What did I do?
Oh,
It's okay, I'll do it because I have to
Oh.
come in.
yeah, it's a scroll instead of next because it's not.
Okay.
Not being very user-friendly right now.
And maybe for the people in the audience, when we're talking about the adjustment amount, if you could zoom in more toward the adjustment column so they can see the numbers that we're talking about and where the carry forwards are, Kristen.
I can try. It's going to cut off other stuff.
That is much better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, as you can see, there were no adjustments needed for administration. For development services, we have a total of $84,163 that came from inspections and engineering services to be utilized for third-party inspection fees. For our municipal court juvenile case management, there is a carry forward of $19,000 to go to our court tech.
And I will remind you that that court tech fund is a restricted fund. It's not a general fund. It can only be used for technology specifically relating to the municipal court operations.
For Parks and Recreation, there is a carry forward of $259,000 for park improvements of Red Horse Park. Police, we have a carry forward of $35,000 to be used for a used vehicle for a new officer. And that is all the carry forwards for general fund. If you could go to the next.
Debt service.
Debt service. As you can see here, there were no adjustments necessary for debt service. Next slide.
On the debt service, I know at a previous meeting there was mention made regarding why we have just slightly over $20,000 in the debt service fund, and that is for unbilled bank fees. So a lot of times when we get the invoicing for our debt service, sometimes it includes the bank fee on there, and sometimes it does not include the bank fee. So we always have to carry the money in there to make sure that the debt service has sufficient funds for when the bank fees are billed separately.
Thank you for touching on that. Okay, for capital projects, we have East Aviation revenue of $709,000. That is a TxDOT, I'm sorry? MPO fund?
Yeah, MPO reimbursements.
Yes. For Meadow Oaks Park, we have $29,000 carry forward and $324,000 for bond road repair. And I just want to touch on the transfer in from the general fund that was for our debt service payments for the fire truck, the tractor, Meadowland Park renovations and equipment. Any questions?
Nope, press on.
So under the utility department, we have prior year funds of 3.5 million as a carry forward. Under public works, 200,000 for public works yard improvements. Water development of 381,000, sewer development of 431,000, and for capital projects, 2.5 million.
So remind you on the public works, water and sewer, as you remember, we have been over a series of quite a few budgets setting aside cash in the utility fund for the necessary improvements for the public works department. And so that is paid for out of those three funds. So on the ones where you see the larger number, it's because we set aside funding in previous years, and we're just carrying it forward until the time that we have the ability to cash fund the entire project.
So we're doing basically, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, I'm sorry. It's like, so this is in lieu of doing a debt, a bond. Instead
Correct.
of borrowing the money, we're just saving it up so that we can pay back.
Right, whether it's a certificate of obligation or it's a bond, we are doing everything we can to cash flow projects. That way we avoid interest and all the other things that go along with it.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
All right, for stormwater, there were no adjustments to revenue. However, there were adjustments to the operations of $12,000 for a server upgrade.
And I will mention again, like in that one, like we did in the last one, so we do have excess revenues over expenditures, and that is our CBDG funding, again, restricted use on those properties, so that is why you're seeing the revenues over expenditures. We just haven't finished the project yet.
Okay, and lastly is the golf course, which there are no adjustments to speak of.
So that's it for the budget adjustments. When we get down to the audit period, sometime in 2022, hopefully within the first quarter, that's when we'll see depreciation and other minor adjustments come over. Also on the transfer into the golf course from the venue tax, that's when you'll see that on the golf course side as well.
Okay, so what we have is before us is the proposed budget amendment, and so I would be glad to entertain a motion, and then we'll open up for discussion.
Move for approval.
Second by Councilmember Shelby, second by Councilmember Maxwell. Any specific questions or discussion?
Yes, that's too late, huh?
Yeah, you got third. Time for a second. Okay, any other specific comments or questions about it? I think it's pretty straightforward, the way Jessica presented it, and then Kim added on to it. So we do have a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, Crystal, come up and vote, please.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Boley.
Aye.
Good, that motion passes. We'll move on now to city manager comments. That concluded our business for this evening. So city manager, ma'am?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I wrote it back on the sheet. This is the last weekend for the fall cleanup, Thursday through Sunday. Remember, we used to have it all week long. We decided that we needed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to clean up the yard. So we weren't cleaning up weeks after that, and that appears to have worked out. So if anyone has anything they need to take to the fall cleanup, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week. Also, coming up on October 28th will be the last happy hour of the year at the Olympia Hills Golf Course. It is a Halloween costume. No costume required, no registration required. It is open for adults and children of all ages. And then Shelby Haber, who is one of our new court clerks, very quickly was able to get her level 1 certification, so we're very pleased and happy with that. According to TxDOT, their work on Loop 1604 will be done by the end of the year. As you know, the groundbreaking for I-35 was postponed, They did promise us that they would not break ground until they completed Loop 1604, otherwise we would be trapped in the city. So that is being held off. East Aviation, construction should also be done by the end of the year. Weather permitting, fingers crossed, leg crossed, knock on wood. The Gather Brewery is going to be receiving their final inspection. So they should be having a grand opening soon.
After the first year. They have 5 months of brewing.
For the Gather Brewing, yeah, they'll be having their grand opening at the beginning of the year. They obviously have some things they need to put in place. And the other thing is the hotel on IH-35. They are right now working like cats and dogs to try to be open and receive their first customer on the 30th of December so that they can start their new year off. Dutch Boys Brothers will open on November 1st. So that is a great coffee spot near the college and for those that live on that side of 1604. And then the golf course did have a record-setting year. They ended with 41,500 rounds, which is an amount they've never done before. The closest they came to it was in 2014. And starting on October 25th, we will be overseeding the golf course, so that will have some people don't like it when we overseed, so that may affect some.
Getting ready for the winter.
Yeah. And that's all I have for tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Beverly?
Main thing I wanted to talk about was the pumpkin patch. It's just gangbusters. And it's also helping a lot of people work with their nonprofit or their charities that all raising funds for that. So it's just a win-win. And congratulations. And that's it.
Olympia Elementary broke the record.
Yeah.
It was jammed back there. You couldn't park. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a list and I lost it. I'm just going to have to call you again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I've had enough to say.
You had enough to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just shortly, Tom and I were representing Universal City at the Texas Municipality Conference, and just want to let you know that we had a good time there. Made a lot of good contacts. Talked to a lot of city managers and councilmen, and kind of putting ideas back and forth. We took classes such as the evolution of community engagement in Texas communities, deep dive in law enforcement legislation, council members, elections, just a whole plethora of different venues we went to, and transparency in government. A lot of great classes, a lot of good information, and it came back. I came back very rich. Mr. Maxwell will say the same. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one thing. Talking about the pumpkin patch, I just want to thank everybody involved, from the people who are unloading the pumpkins, people setting up the patch, people who are out there every day that it's open. I cannot exude enough thanks to the people that are making that happen, that are putting a good thing in the city and bringing the community together. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, just a couple others. We did get a thank you note from family Betty Williams. She thanked us for the flowers, thoughts, and support from her copies, so that's always very nice. And we will have an official uniform change starting the first meeting in November. You have to wear your formal attire. You have to wear a long sleeve shirt and a tie, except for me and all that.
I lost my ties.
You lost
I lost all my ties.
Anybody want to take care of that?
They fall off.
Okay, thanks everybody for this evening. We had some good presentations. I think the concept of having a potential project coming in and to let us give them our opinions on what we think, where we're coming from, I think makes a whole lot of sense. As you all know, early voting has started. There's Judson issues. There's an issue here, there's also ones related to the county and the state, so, and our early voting site, except for, there's one that is not, oh, it's the District 118, that is not at the library, that is at a couple of other locations, and that is for a specific part of Universal City that votes for that particular District 118. You know, a lot of Universal Cities in District 119. So anyway, exercise your franchise, everybody. And so thank you very much for attending this evening. We appreciate you, everyone sticking around. And I think you learned that there's some very good potential projects coming up. I think PACE has a lot of potential value. And it would benefit not just us, but certainly our businesses. So thank you very much for sticking around. It's 9:01. The meeting is now adjourned.
Thanks for sending me that.